The ABC short sale deal, and you can do this as a real estate investor. You are going to have a realtor involved in your real estate deals, okay? The banks aren't going to do business with you. You'll hear agents, you'll hear investors say, I don't need a realtor to help me, and I can deal with the bank. Our homeowner will say, I'll deal with the bank, I'll negotiate. All I can say is, good luck. My dealings have I've never run across somebody that's actually made one of those things happen. What happens, the bank looks at those people like the old joke about the guy in court who says he's going to represent himself and he has a fool for a client. And that's the way it is. These folks, people believe what the bank is saying. I mean, I do believe it. I hear it on the radio, I hear it on the TV. They say, oh, we're starving, we're losing money, our portfolio is dead. Yet they make record profits. It doesn't jive. So, typical ABC short sale deal. First thing you do is when you identify a deal, you set those expectations. Like I said, you sit down with the homeowner, you and the realtor and the investor, and you say, look guys, we're going to buy this for $150. We're going to get the bank to settle for around $150, we hope. And with this, there's a finite end to your pain. In about 3 months, you're going to have to move. The short sale will be approved. And that's kind of reassurance for people. They finally figure out there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You tell them that to do this, we're going to have to offer a little bit less because the bank's going to counter us back a little higher. Typical real estate negotiations. After you get it under contract, you go and you negotiate the short sale. That's what your agent does. You don't do that yourself. Hire a professional negotiator, or your agent has to be a good negotiator, knows how to do short sales. And you get that approval. Now, I kind of glossed over the approval process. If you really want to go over that, I'll go over that with you, but let me just bypass it for the time being. Let's move right on to the approval process. As a buyer, as a B buyer, as an investor, you need to close that deal. You need to wet close that deal. You need to write a check from your own money to close that deal before you turn around and resell it on the spread to make the profit. All right, there are such things, you've heard of one-day closes, things like that, simultaneous closes, double escrows. These things, absolute fraud nightmares. Title companies are refusing to do them now. I have guys telling me to still do it. It's not mine. I can tell you right now, don't waste your time trying to do that. You're going to get in trouble.
Rich, they won't record 2 deeds the same day now in California.
Correct.
So you can't deed in and back out to a title company on the same day in California.
And not only that, the title companies are looking at everything with a magnifying glass this big. So it's not, you'll see guys out there selling programs and systems that tout the system, and I just advise you to be very, very wary of that. Close that deal with your own money, then you own the property. Make sure you got a good deal on it. That's the bottom line. You market it for a C buyer and N buyer. You go into contract with that C buyer. Your C buyer gives you the money, and you're done. You live on that spread. Your profit is that spread between what you pay for it and what the C buyer pays you for it. No, I mean, how else? That's buy low and sell high. That's what we've been doing in real estate. I've been doing this since '84. It's pretty simple. What we do now is we create that spread by negotiating strongly to get a good get a good margin and make profit. Then, I mean, is that what you do? You buy low, you fix them up, you sell high, right? Go.
So you need to give a disclosure to the bank that you're going to intend to resell the property.
I do put that in there, but I don't believe that you need to.
No. You can't claim bank fraud if you turn around and sell it.
Well, I put that in there so that I'm protected from anybody that would claim there was fraud. I do put that in my transactions. I'm being a little bit belligerent about it because I don't believe that what I do with that property the day after I close escrow is anybody's business but my own. If the bank doesn't want me to make a profit on it, they don't need to sell it to me. If they don't like my number, they don't need to sell it to me. Okay, so now, as I said, I'm being belligerent about it, I'm being a little bit obstinate. There is a huge turmoil about that in this business right now. People buying for $200,000, reselling for $250,000, making $50,000 profit in a week. And you know, there are people, like Richie said earlier, there are people, agencies and title companies, etc., that are saying this is fraud. But again, my position is,
What is it you put in the document?
put in comments says I intend to make a profit on this by reselling it. After the close of escrow, I'm going to remarket it and resell it. I also talk about what I've got to do to it. I've got to paint it. I've got to carry it. You know, I've got to carry the debt service. I have expenses that I expect to be reimbursed for when I resell. So I explained to them what I'm going to do, and it's really in there just as I'm going to have it if I ever get sued about it. If the bank comes after me, I'm going to say, I told you right here, this is what I was going to do with it. So.
What influence do you have over the BPO?
I talked before about telling the truth. This is the gray area for real estate investors. For me, it's real simple. I do my own comps. I meet the BPO agent, and I make sure they understand. And I tell them what it's under contract for. And I say to them, this house is worth $195. That's what I got under contract for. Here's the comps. Some of them might be a little higher. Hopefully some of them are in that same range. And I tell them, look, you know, this is what it's going for. This market is going to hell in a handbasket. My guy's taking a risk paying this much. The bank is going to think it's worth more because they want more to satisfy their investors. But you, Mr. BPO or appraiser, need to do your job and market this value at what it is actually done. Don't be lazy and just take the last 3 comps in the neighborhood that closed 6 months ago.
So you do meet the BPO agent then?
I do, yes. Yes, ma'am.
On the times where the sellers had to make some concessions to pay the lender, what were those instances?
Almost always, especially with Bank of America, when you have an investor property, you will get a request for a cash contribution from your homeowner. When I talked earlier about the setting expectations, when we sit down and talk about this at the dinner table the first night, I say, okay, you know, you're not in bankruptcy. You've got some money in the bank here. The bank is going to look at this and they're going to say, we'll settle this. We will accept the short sale, but we want $10,000 cash contribution. I tell them that up front. And then I tell them, don't get upset about that. Expect it. And what I will do is I will negotiate that down for you. I will try and get it down to $2,500 or $3,500 or something like that. So expect that when we get to the close of that, or to the 7th day.
Have you had an owner occupant, you know, like that's their primary residence, but it's not a purchase money loan, it's a refi?
Right.
Have you had an instance where the bank's required that type of person to make a cash contribution?
Absolutely. I've had it happen with its original purchase money.
Okay.
This little condo that I mentioned earlier, that was an original purchase money loan, and they asked him for a $7,500 cash contribution.
Where did he end up paying?
$2,500.
Okay.
And what I did is I negotiated that. He was expecting it. He said, I thought I was going to pay $5, Rich, thanks, you know. So he expected it. No surprises, no anxiety about it. So keep that in mind. Expect that, even if you don't think it's going to happen in that deal. Warn them that it may happen. And the same with promissory notes. Quite often, they'll say, oh, especially with Service Link, they'll want IndyMac and One West Bank will want a promissory note that says they're going to stay on the hook for 20 grand or 10 grand or 15 grand of the loss.
That one's a purchase money.
Okay.
No, I was told that the promissory notes that there was a law passed against that. Is that correct?
Not that I know of. But I wouldn't be surprised if it just slipped past me. Really, honestly, I mean.
I was told that it was earlier this year, within the last 3 months or something of that nature, that there was a law against them asking for a promissory note.
I got a request for a promissory note in April. A big one.
Did you say you don't have your client sign one?
No, well, it's a negotiable item. What I do is I do what my clients tell me they can do as a negotiator. Now, as an investor, when I'm in the deal and we need to get it home, we need to get it settled. Sometimes I'm the one that's got to come up with that $2,500 cash contribution. If these people don't have a you-know-what in, they're broke and got nothing. If this deal's going to close and they just need $2,500 extra, and I'm going to make a $20,000 spread on it, I will pitch in. That's, as an investor, that makes good sense.